A poor girl walked toward a cave. Nobody imagined that simple journey would transform a forgotten French village into one of the most visited pilgrimage destinations on Earth. Yet more than 150 years later, millions of people still travel to Lourdes seeking something that science, medicine, and human understanding sometimes struggle to explain. Stay with me until the very end, because the final case we'll discuss remains one of the most investigated healing stories in modern history. And it continues to raise a question that doctors, believers, and skeptics still debate today. How do you explain a healing that doctors cannot explain? To understand the mystery, we must travel to southwestern France. Nestled beneath the Pyrenees Mountains lies the town of Lourdes. Today, it welcomes millions of visitors every year. Pilgrims arrive from every corner of the world. Some come walking, some arrive in wheelchairs. Some carry photographs of loved ones. Others carry medical records, and many arrive with hope. Yet in 1858, Lourdes was not a famous destination. It was a poor rural town, small, quiet, largely unknown. Few people outside the region had ever heard its name. Among its residents was a 14-year-old girl named Bernadette Soubirous. She came from a struggling family. They lived in poverty. Their home was tiny, their future uncertain. Bernadette was not educated, she was not influential. She was not someone history was expected to remember. And yet history often chooses the most unexpected people. One cold February day, Bernadette walked with her sister and a friend toward a rocky grotto near the river. The place was known as Massabielle. At the time, it was little more than a cave. A quiet, isolated corner of the countryside. Nothing about it suggested it would become one of the most visited religious sites on Earth. Then something happened, something Bernadette would never forget. She later described hearing a sound like a gust of wind. Yet the trees remained still. The air remained calm. Looking toward the grotto, she saw a radiant figure surrounded by light, a figure unlike anything she had ever seen before. Bernadette was frightened, confused, mesmerized. She returned home and told her family. Few believed her. Some dismissed the story immediately. Others worried she had imagined everything. But Bernadette remained consistent. Again and again she returned to the grotto. Again and again she described seeing the same mysterious lady. Word spread quickly. Curiosity grew. Crowds began following her. Some hoped to witness something extraordinary. Others arrived hoping to expose a deception. Few realized that the greatest mystery of Lourdes had not yet begun, because soon attention would shift from the visions themselves to something far more surprising. A spring hidden beneath the earth. And what would happen to the people who touched its waters? Section 2. The water that changed everything. At first, the crowds came for Bernadette. They came to see the girl, to hear her story, to decide for themselves whether she was telling the truth. But soon, something happened that shifted everyone's attention. During one of the reported apparitions, Bernadette said the mysterious lady instructed her to dig in the ground. The request seemed strange, even embarrassing. People watched as the young girl knelt in the dirt. She scraped away mud with her hands. The crowd looked on with confusion. Some laughed. Others shook their heads. There was nothing there. No water, no sign of anything remarkable. Then, slowly, moisture began appearing in the soil. A small trickle emerged, then another. Within days, a spring began flowing from the grotto. At first, nobody paid much attention. After all, springs existed everywhere. What made this one special? The answer came unexpectedly. Stories began spreading through Lourdes, stories that sounded impossible. People claimed illnesses had improved, pain had disappeared, conditions that had resisted treatment seemed to change. At first, many dismissed the reports. Rumors spread quickly in small towns. Extraordinary claims required extraordinary evidence. And yet the stories continued. One account became another, then another, then another. Visitors arrived hoping for healing. Some came carrying crutches. Some arrived suffering from chronic illnesses. Others had exhausted every treatment available to them. Imagine the atmosphere: hope mixed with skepticism, desperation mixed with expectation. Every person approaching the spring carried a different story, a different burden, a different reason for being there. Some left unchanged. Others claimed something remarkable had happened. Word spread beyond Lourdes. Newspapers began reporting the events. Doctors became interested. Religious authorities became interested. Scientists became interested. And perhaps most surprisingly, many of them arrived determined not to believe. They came looking for mistakes, misunderstandings, exaggerations. Yet the reports continued accumulating. As crowds increased, Lourdes transformed. The quiet village became a destination. The cave became a place of pilgrimage. And the spring became the center of an international mystery. The question was no longer whether Bernadette had seen something unusual. The question had become far more difficult. How could so many people report healings? Were they real? Were they psychological? Were they temporary? Or was something happening that nobody fully understood? The growing number of claims forced authorities to act. Eventually, a system was created unlike anything the world had seen before. If a person claimed healing at Lourdes, the case would be examined. Not accepted automatically, not celebrated immediately, investigated carefully, rigorously. Doctors would review medical records, diagnoses, test results, treatment histories, evidence. The process became extraordinarily strict. Most claims were rejected. Many could not be verified. Others had possible medical explanations. Only a tiny fraction survived the investigation process. And yet some did. Cases emerged that left experienced physicians struggling to provide answers. Cases that seemed to defy expectations. Cases that transformed Lourdes from a religious destination into one of the most fascinating medical mysteries in the world. At this point, if you're enjoying these stories of miracles, mysteries, and extraordinary places that continue to inspire millions, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Every week we explore remarkable events connected to the world's most famous shrines and sacred places. Now, let's continue. Because the most astonishing part of the Lourdes story wasn't the spring itself. It wasn't even the first healings. It was what happened when doctors began examining the evidence. And one particular case would leave the medical world asking a question it still discusses today. How do you explain a recovery that shouldn't have happened? The answer would bring pilgrims from every continent and help transform Lourdes into one of the most visited spiritual destinations on earth. It wasn't even the first healings. It was what happened when doctors began examining the evidence. And one particular case would leave the medical world asking a question it still discusses today. How do you explain a recovery that shouldn't have happened? The answer would bring pilgrims from every continent and help transform Lourdes into one of the most visited spiritual destinations on earth. Section 3. The healings that changed the world. As the years passed, the spring at Lourdes continued flowing, day after day, year after year, decade after decade. And with every passing year, more people arrived. Some came curious. Some came skeptical. Some came desperate. Many came carrying burdens too heavy to bear alone. Imagine arriving at Lourdes after exhausting every option, every treatment, every specialist, every medication. Imagine being told there is nothing more that can be done. Imagine hearing the words nobody wants to hear. We don't know how to help you. That reality has brought countless people to Lourdes. Not because they expected magic, not because they rejected medicine, but because hope is often strongest when everything else seems exhausted. And nowhere is that hope more visible than among the sick pilgrims. Every year, thousands arrive in wheelchairs, hospital beds, stretchers, supported by volunteers who dedicate their time helping complete strangers. The scene is unlike almost anywhere else in the world. Doctors walk beside priests. Scientists walk beside believers. Families walk beside those facing their greatest struggles. And at the center of it all remains the spring. The water Bernadette uncovered more than a century ago. Many visitors drink it. Many wash in it. Many simply sit beside it and pray. Most experience no dramatic physical change. That fact is important, because Lourdes has never claimed that everyone is healed. What makes Lourdes remarkable is something else entirely: the small number of cases that remain extraordinarily difficult to explain. Cases so unusual that they survived years of medical investigation. Cases that forced physicians to ask uncomfortable questions. One such case became known around the world. A woman suffering from a severe and debilitating illness arrived at Lourdes after years of pain and decline. Doctors had documented her condition extensively. Medical records existed. Diagnoses existed. Evidence existed. No one disputed that she was seriously ill. She came to Lourdes seeking comfort, not necessarily expecting a cure. Like countless others, she prayed. She participated in the pilgrimage. She spent time near the grotto. And then something happened. Her symptoms began improving, rapidly, unexpectedly. The improvement continued. Doctors examined her. Again, and again, and again. Months passed, years passed. The recovery remained. Medical experts reviewed the documentation. Specialists analyzed the evidence. Independent physicians examined the case. Yet no satisfactory explanation emerged. Eventually, the healing was officially recognized, not because people wanted to believe, but because extensive investigation failed to find an adequate medical explanation. Stories like this have fascinated the world for generations, not because they prove anything beyond doubt, but because they challenge assumptions. They invite questions. They remind us how much remains unknown. And perhaps that is why Lourdes continues drawing millions of visitors every year. Because deep down, every human being understands something important. We do not know everything. Medicine achieves extraordinary things. Science continues transforming lives. Yet there are still moments that leave even experts searching for answers. And when those moments happen, people naturally ask deeper questions. Questions about hope. Questions about meaning. Questions about possibility. As the sun sets over Lourdes, the sanctuary takes on a different atmosphere. Thousands of candles begin glowing in the evening darkness. Pilgrims gather together. Prayers rise into the night air. The mountains stand silently in the distance. And for a few moments, people from every corner of the world become part of the same story. A story that began with a poor girl, a cave, a spring, and a mystery that continues to this day. Now let's return to the question that brought us here. How do you explain a healing that doctors cannot explain? Was it coincidence? Was it an extraordinary natural recovery? Was it something medicine has not yet discovered? Or was it something more? Each person who visits Lourdes answers that question differently. Some see faith, some see mystery, some see hope. Others see unanswered questions. But regardless of where you stand, one fact remains undeniable. A small, forgotten village became one of the most visited pilgrimage destinations on Earth. Millions continue making the journey. Millions continue finding comfort there. And millions continue reflecting on stories that challenge the limits of what we think we know. Perhaps that is the true miracle of Lourdes. Not simply the healings, but the hope, the courage, the resilience, the belief that even in life's darkest moments, something beautiful may still be possible. And maybe that is why people keep returning. Generation after generation, year after year, searching not only for answers, but for hope. Before you leave, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the mysteries of Lourdes? Do you believe some healings can exist beyond our current understanding? Or do you think every case will eventually find a scientific explanation? Share your perspective in the comments below. I read every comment and genuinely enjoy hearing your thoughts. And if you enjoy discovering the miracles, mysteries, and extraordinary stories hidden behind the world's most famous shrines, don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey. Because our next story may be even more incredible than this one.